Yes, thank you very much. It is a pleasure and an honor to represent the IAEA in this important scientific event. In this presentation, I will describe the support of the IAEA to the medical physics profession. For more than a decade, the IAEA has made concerted efforts to highlight the importance of recognition of the medical physics profession with the aim of supporting its crucial role in ensuring safety, quality, and effectiveness of radiation medicine. Recognition is deeply intertwined with all of the elements composing a profession, in particular education, its availability and adherence to international best practices, continuous professional development, or CPD, to allow already qualified professionals to maintain their skills and knowledge up to date, and professional practice and its compliance to international best practices. This presentation describes the approach of the IAEA with respect to tackling all of these aspects and the related activities and opportunities offered to member states. This presentation also aims at being interactive, so I would really appreciate if you would like to participate into anonymous polls. To do so and preparing to do so, please visit the website www.mentai.com. And during the overall presentation, you will be presented with overall 4 questions. Each of these questions will have a separate code. You can access these pages for voting with all devices, including your cell phones, and you will see it's fairly easy. So I would suggest that we start with the first question. So please, you can select among these replies, what is your job? You can please go to the page mentai.com and type in the code that is reported here at the bottom right of my slide. The code for this vote is 30466037. I have used here 3 acronyms. So DR stands for Diagnostic Radiology and Nuclear Medicine, and RT Radiotherapy. Thank you very much for voting. And medical physics has been included by the International Labour Organization among the health workforce already in 2008 in the publication International Standard Classification of Occupations. Despite this, the recognition of medical physics as a health profession has been scarce all over the globe. I suggest now that you please participate in another poll. So if you can please reload another page of the mentai.com and type in this time the code 60398798. The question is, how do you think that the medical physics profession is affected by the lack of recognition? And you can select here all of that you think that apply. There are no right or wrong answers here. It's really for us to understand what you think are the major downsides of this lack of recognition that we know is widespread. Thank you very much for voting. And the medical physics profession in general suffers of the lack of understanding and also preconceptions about the role of science in medicine. Medical physicists suffer of the typical downsides that affect all minorities. In fact, medical physicists are a minority in the health workforce, with all of the related professional and social consequences. One of the first consequences is the invisibility of medical physicists in clinical settings and their marginalization from the decision-making processes, which also affects professional practice of medical physicists. Another important downside is the unequal access to education and training opportunities, including continuous professional development. The IAEA has been tackling over the years several of these points. For instance, invisibility through advocating and creating partnerships, for instance, with international professional organizations and national professional organizations. Access to quality and education and training, through providing opportunities through different mechanisms to member states. For example, providing advice, supporting peer review, audit processes, and promoting and ensuring adherence to standards, and therefore supporting quality in the profession. And isolation, to promoting networking through, for instance, online platforms. An example of this online platform is the Human Health Campus website, which is a web page that is managed by the IAEA. And in this specific slide, I depicted the page that was dedicated to the International Day of Medical Physics 2020, which you can access through using this QR code. On this page, you will find videos, links, and testimonials and documents that you can use in your settings to help you advocate for the recognition of the medical physics profession. The International BSS was issued in 2014 and covers the radiation protection in all uses of radiation, including the uses in medicine. It's not mandatory in general, but it is for member states that wish to receive technical assistance from the IAEA. It is typically used as a template for many national regulations. And in this document, you will find a very clear definition of the medical physicist as a health professional with specialist education and training. And in this document, whenever medical physicists are mentioned, you will find specific keywords such as accreditation, certification, and reference to competence. Since its publication in 2014, there have been expectations that this publication would support professional recognition of medical physicists, together with the understanding of the responsibilities of such professionals, and also understanding of the importance of education and training of medical physicists. And many advances have been made over time, but still many have to be achieved. There was a publication issue on the Lancet Oncology in 2015, which described something that we can call the medical physics gap. There was a projection in this article only referring to the field of radiotherapy medical physics and only on low and middle income countries. This projection by 2035 referred to a need of additional 22,000 medical physicists. This publication also included a call for action that by 2025, only low and middle income countries and only in the field of radiotherapy medical physics, 6,000 more medical physicists need to be trained. We know that we are currently far away to reaching this goal. However, we are working, and of course, there is also, to this also, there is an influence of the lack of understanding of the roles and responsibilities of medical physicists. And the IAEA published in 2013, the IAEA Human Health Series 25, a publication that specifically addresses the role and responsibilities of such professionals in the three specialties of medical physics. It aims at contributing to the harmonization of education and clinical training, also promoting the recognition of the profession, and including hints toward how to apply accreditation, certification, registration, and promoting the use of continuous professional development. This publication has been endorsed by WAPM and IOMP, and also contains a diagram that refers to the pathway through which becoming a clinically qualified medical physicist. As you can see from this diagram, different pathways are taken into account. There are different entrance points. However, this diagram contains a central part that is common, and this includes a postgraduate level academic program in medical physics, which is followed by supervised and structured clinical training, also called residency. And it's actually through this clinical training that the professional will acquire the needed competencies to work independently in a clinical setting. And the bottom part of this graph actually clearly refers to formal recognition through certification, registration, and recertification through maintaining the knowledge up to date through a CPD system. And over time, the IAEA has published other publications to support member states in establishing such pathways to becoming a clinically qualified professional. For instance, the TCS 56, a document that describes the postgraduate academic programs in medical physics. This was issued in 2014 and also endorsed by the IOMP. And clinical training guidelines in the three specialties of medical physics These are guidelines that contain tables and checklists that can be used in the clinical practice by both residents and supervisors, and they contain a very clear reference to the instrument of the portfolio that would support and ensure that all of the competencies are achieved by the residents. And together with these guidelines, the IAEA also supports regional approaches to establishing education and training pathways. For instance, the one that was supported to the AFRA agreement, and currently also the Latin American region is undergoing a similar process. And from this diagram, it was clear how there was already reference to the word certification. And very recently, actually in 2021, in February, a couple of months ago, the IAEA issued a specific publication, the TCS 71, that was endorsed jointly by the IOMP and IMPCB to support member states in establishing certification for medical physicists. So please, I would suggest that we go to the third poll. Please vote going on the menti.com page. And in this case, please type in the code 83578919. Is there a certification program for medical physicists in your country? Please let us know through voting in this anonymous poll. Thank you very much. The TCS 71 is freely available for download on the IAEA website. It was issued in February 2021 and builds on previous IAEA publications, in particular the IAEA BSS, International BSS, as well as referring strongly to the International Labour Organization classification of professions and the reference that medical physicists are health professionals. Please go on the menti.com page and vote to the last interactive anonymous poll of my presentation, this time typing in the code 58511706. When setting up a certification scheme for medical physicists in your country, what entity do you think should be mainly involved? You can select only one reply here. Please go and vote on the menti.com page. Thank you very much. And the IAEA TCS 71 also contains diagrams. You can see one extracted here from the publication. This diagram mainly is explaining to member states several steps that they can undertake to establishing a certification body and therefore a certification system in their countries and in their settings. As you can see, it has to be taken into account sustainability in establishing such processes, and also the process can be seen as a step-by-step approach. The certification body is in fact constituted of different structures. Some of these structures are communicating and others are completely separated, such as the appeals and complaints structure. These building blocks are to be understood as to be adopted and tailored to the local country situation in order to achieve the establishment of the certification body. And of course, when we talk about certification, as we saw before already in the IAEA Human Series 25, there has to be taken into account a system of maintaining such certification. This is typically done through establishing a continuous professional development program or CPD program. And this can include, for instance, participation in a scientific conference like this one, where we are all in now, research and development, or different activities. And these activities typically aim at maintaining or enhancing professional competence of medical physicists, reinforcing the ability in specific areas, and getting up to date with knowledge and technologies and techniques, things that are very much linked to a profession like medical physics, which is closely working with medical technology. And typically there will be finally evaluation mechanisms that will entail, for instance, a certain number of credits. And in general, these activities are not part of the job description already of the medical physicist, but these will be activities outside of this job description. And the IAEA also offers to member states activities that fall under the category of continuous professional development. For instance, regional training courses. These courses already take into account the professional is a clinically qualified medical physicist and are in a specific area and domain. Scientific visits, certain type of fellowships, and participation in workshops, for instance, the one that are organized jointly with ICTP, the Argonne National Laboratories, or also e-learning courses. These e-learning courses are hosted on the learning management system of the IAEA. They are accessible freely, and they typically are based on courses that took place physically. They contain videos and slides, but also self-assessment that is mandatory and subject to the completion of the self-assessment. Then the user will be able to download the proof of completion containing details of the learning objectives of the average duration in hours of such activities, so that the clinical medical physicists can then use such proof of completion in order to claim, for instance, CPD in their own system. And the Human Health Campus website that I mentioned already earlier is a website that is dedicated to professionals in the field of radiation medicine, including medical physicists. When you go in the area dedicated to medical physics, you will find material that is divided per topic, and also subchapters where you can easily access, for instance, IAEA publications, and also all of the e-learning material, which is actually collected in a subsection of the Human Health Campus. Typical examples of what is available in this section are, for instance, web-based e-learning materials, such as slides. These slides accompany, for instance, IAEA publications. What I depicted here on this slide is slides that accompany transition to new procedures and technology here in HDR brachytherapy, and also access to e-learning courses. We have currently available 3 e-learning courses on IGRT, small fields, and nuclear radiological emergencies, and these accompany IAEA publications and also video tutorials. The small field e-learning course is the most recent that we have published. It was published at the end of September 2020, and since then, currently, as of March, we have about 400 active participants. This course is an advanced course, which means that some previous knowledge is expected, and users can access the course subject to passing to an entrance exam. The course is fully based on the IAEA TRS 483 Code of Practice, and it contains videos and slides, mandatory self-assessment, and subject to the completion of a final test, the user will be able to download a proof of completion. This e-learning course, was based on the experience and the material that was developed over the years in several small field dosimetry training courses. These courses took place in English, Spanish, and also in French. And video tutorials that you can find on the Human Health Campus include tutorials in the field of radiotherapy, for instance, acceptance of a new source in HDR brachytherapy, and cross-calibration of field ionization chambers in high-energy proton beams. All of these activities are based on IAEA guidelines, and you will find on the relevant page also the relevant link to download the guideline together with the videos. Video tutorials are also available in the field of nuclear medicine, for instance, the one accompanying the IAEA Human Health Series number 6 publication, and these videos also include a quiz of self-assessment, and you can download also the videos individually. And video tutorials were more recently also developed in the field of diagnostic radiology. So we have now quality control for CT videos, and these are based on the IAEA Human Health Series publication number 19. But the IAEA also supports the work of medical physicists working in the clinical practice through specific publications and code of practices. Here you can find only a few of the IAEA publications in the field of medical physics, and together with guidelines and code of practices, there are also comprehensive handbooks. These handbooks were developed in all of the 3 specialties of medical physics, and also includes the possibility of downloading comprehensive slide sets, and these were developed to support the work of teachers as well as students. Competency building is provided to member states, also through the work of the Technical Cooperation Program at the IAEA. The support specifically in medical physics is includes quite a big number of projects. Here, only in the Asia and Pacific region, in the last 10 years, from 2020 to 2010 to 2020, there have been more than 120 projects, including medical physics, and 100 of these were national and 19 regional. The activities in this framework include training courses. These can be national and regional, expert missions, procurement of material, which is typically also followed with a specific training, and fellowships and scientific visits. An example of training courses also include training courses in the field specifically of education and training in medical physics. What I depicted here is a regional training course that was held in Nigeria to support the application of the IAEA guidelines, specifically in clinical training. It was a train the trainer course, which means that we were training people who would go then and train nationally again. So this course actually was repeated nationally a couple of times already. In the specific, there was a focus on discussing how to establish structured and supervised clinical training, how to use a portfolio, and how to carry out assessment, including this assessment all along the clinical training, as well as the final assessment at the end of the clinical training. And we have been following up with this group of trainers over time and supporting their work in establishing clinical training nationally. And under the current circumstances where traveling is strongly restricted, the IAEA is still supporting member states through remote support mostly, which is typically desk-based through home-based assignments. For instance, a review of syllabi for postgraduate academic programs or clinical training structures through advisory and desk-based assignments for the most part. Another activity that was developed under the Technical Cooperation Program is the AMPOL platform. AMPOL is an acronym that stands for Advanced Medical Physics Learning Environment. This was developed under a regional project of the IAEA, specifically dedicated to education and training in medical physics in the Asia and Pacific region. This was based completely on IAEA guidelines and actually transferred this guideline on the IAEA learning management system. So to create a collaboration and a centralized electronic record of clinical training and assessment. This also included comprehensive learning resources, including material developed under regional training courses, but also material that was selected through a very active editorial board that would select the material and upload it into this platform. This has been instrumental over the years to supporting the establishment of structured clinical training in the Asia and Pacific region. You can see here an overview of how many clinical supervisors and residents are currently active on the AMPOL platform in the 3 specialties. And these numbers have been increasing over time. You can find a dedicated article on the IAEA website on this specific platform if you want to learn more about it. The IAEA also supports the Master's Program in Medical Physics, or MMP, which is run jointly by the ICTP and the University of Trieste in Italy. This program helps addressing the scarcity of medical physicists in many countries, and the IAEA supports this through fellowships every year. You can see at the bottom left on my slide a graph showing the fellowships supported per year by the IAEA since the start of this program. And you can see that the number has been increasing constantly, and also that the support is given to different regions, to fellows from different regions. This program is entirely based on IAEA guidelines, and the IAEA role includes support of fellowships, but also selection of participants. And the role of the IAEA is also one of advisor role and participation at the graduation panel. And the IAEA also supports research activities in the field of medical physics. This is typically done through coordinated research projects. These projects aim at bringing together scientists from different parts of the world to focus on well-defined areas of research. There is typically a limited number of participants, and the aim of this project is to foster the exchange of know-how and also defining and drafting guidelines and publishing white papers. And the role of the IAEA is to foster this collaboration and ensure that the end results of the research will be then made freely available to all member states. Thank you very much. If you would like to access more information, please visit our websites, the Human Health Campus, but as well as the IAEA.org website.